Hey everybody, here's day two of our book review of Metu Neter. This time we're going to go over chapters 4, 5, and 6. Apologize for not being able to do it yesterday. I was enjoying my Mother's Day with my boys. Happy Mother's Day to all my mommies out there. So, just getting started or whatever, because, yeah. So, chapter 4 is about cosmology and cosmogony. One of the first points that I have in my notes is most people live their daily lives with the wrong ideas of what is life, what their true goals should be, and how to correctly achieve their goals because of lack of knowledge of self and purpose of life.
Isn't cosmology the study of like stars in space, or like the alignments of constellations?
Yeah. And I think even in this chapter, it broke down the word cosmology and cosmogony, um, and how the word cos was about like unity to an extent. Yeah. But what were your notes for the first chapter? Like, what did you get out of the first chapter?
Well, from the first chapter, I understood that most of the time there was almost the same as you, but I only have like questions about it.
Okay.
So, in like the few color pages right here, right? Starts right here.
Okay.
I was wondering about all the goddesses, like what is their names and how come they're important in the story? Because right here it said like how the blacks were involved in cosmology and meditation and did the invocation and predominantly goddesses. How did that come into play?
Okay. So what Zeke is talking about is page 42 down to the third paragraph. It says the new masters also outlawed the religion of blacks as they made their religion the official one of the land. This caused the religion of the blacks, which involved cosmology, meditation, deity invocation, predominantly goddesses, hatha yoga, pranayama, mantra yoga, kundalini yoga, yantra, spiritual initiations, talismanic magic, tantric rituals, etc., to break up into separate practices. And that's all in one. That's like two sentences right there. As far as goddesses go, okay, we could talk about the previous chapters that we've read where they talked about the left brain and the right brain and how the left brain was extroverted and it talked about external things and separation, whereas the right brain was about unity and bringing things together. And the right brain was also associated with women. So in previous chapters that we read, it was acknowledged that in most successful civilizations, it was no, the right brain took over. In most successful civilizations, the right brain is the brain that correlates with Black people and religion and spirituality and going inward and creating oneness. Get that part? And then the left brain is the when you talk about separation and creating tools and technology and going outward and creating external tools. You know what I'm saying? Now, one without the other creates an imbalance. When you go external, which is what we are now, right now, we live in an external world. The Western world is external. Everybody's extroverted. Everybody's making videos. Everybody wants to be seen. Everybody's making tools and things like that. And it's helpful. It's helpful to create technology and science. But look at what we're also doing in the meantime. Because we do not see ourselves as one with nature and one with one another, we're creating tools to kill each other. We're creating, the newest weapons, the biggest weapons, the most, destructive weapons because we are not at oneness with other humans. We don't value other people's lives. So it's like, okay, we need to build these tools. You know what I mean? Or like we're not one with nature or with animals. So we are creating these tools like, we have the GMOs, but we're not putting into perspective what's happening when we plant those things out in the world because we don't see ourselves one with plants. If you're doing this to the plants, eventually it's going to affect the people that's eating the plants, and it's going to affect the animals that are eating the plants and digesting the plants, and it's going to affect every organelle in our cell that's ingesting this plant, and it's going to affect our poop, and wherever it is that we poop, it's going to affect that land where we poop at. Like, we don't see ourselves as one with all of that. And that's because the left brain has taken over, and the left brain makes you as a human feel separate than other humans or other species of animals. It makes you as a black man feel separate from other black races or other people, period, or other genders. Like, you're a boy, so it makes you feel separate from being a girl. And you know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm saying? That's the left brain. And the right brain is concentrated on uniting everything and keeping everything together and keeping everything as one. In successful civilizations, the right brain is associated with women, and women are the closest thing to God. Black women are the closest thing to God. We because of our makeup, our hair, the spirals of our hair. The word SPI. There's a play with SPI. You have spirals. The spirals in your hair, your spirit, inspired. You know, all of those things. And in successful, like I said before, in successful civilizations, it's accepted that women are the closest to God because women hold life. And but there is a completeness though. While the man is considered the left side of the brain and the woman is considered the right, it's not a competition. It's not what's better than the other, because with too much of the right side of the brain, which is something that we deal with in the black community, you have a lot of religion and you have a lot of praying and you have a lot of hand holding and stuff like that, and a lot of talking, but you don't have a lot of doing. You don't have a lot of creation of tools and stuff to, keep moving forward. Now, it's getting better, but you have to acknowledge that we need each other. There needs to be a balance. There needs to be a completion rather than competition. Make sense? Okay. Sure. I just did mad shit just now, so let me know. I just spiraled because in order for me to explain to you this one thing, and this was something else that was also explained in the book. In order to understand why people did the things the way they did, you have to understand the way they thought. In order for you to understand why they had not only, but why they had mostly female goddesses, you have to understand how they felt about the oneness and how they were right-brained and how they felt about women being the closest thing to God. Okay? And that's why their deities were predominantly goddesses, and the left brain is correlated, or correlated is a good word, with white people and some Orientals in the book. And so they say that people of the left brain, white people, did not like when they came into contact with people of the right brain, how they put their women up to such a pedestal, because it would influence the Westerners' white women. And it would make the white women feel like, okay, I see these black women doing all these things. Now I feel influenced to do all these things. I feel inspired. And they didn't want that for their women. So they have their religions and their societal norms and all those things. Stop picking at your face. And all those things that keep their women down. You know what I mean? Because they want to keep their women at a certain space. And that's a lot of ego. When there's insecurities, sometimes your ego speak for you. Like when you're bad at something, sometimes you get a nasty attitude about the stuff you're bad at. Like, man, that shit whack anyway. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to do that. That game's not fun anyway. But you're just saying that because you're bad at it. You ever do that? I do that. I ain't gonna lie, I do that sometimes. If I'm bad at something, I'm like, yo, I don't like that anyway.
That actually is kind of common.
Yeah.
Especially for me. I even had to do that today.
Yeah. It happens. But yeah, all that to answer your question. That's why they have predominantly female goddesses, and that's why they were like, get that shit out of here. So moving back to chapter 4. That was a good question. Did you have any other questions?
Right?
Hmm?
Says right here, the certain similarity is shown of the Devarians, the Sumerians, and the Dasus, and the Diasus. and they were black, but they were also called Krishna Tevak.
That goes on to describe the different civilizations and its inhabitants, like the what they call the civilians of those areas. They get into detail a lot with that. Geography has never been my strong suit. I'm not even gonna lie. So when I was reading those things, I actually like I made a tree in my notes. I made a tree and I put the names of the civilizations, and I tried to put as much information as I could about each one, like the names of the people that lived there. And that I had to take that outside of the book. I had to go online and look up those places. So I would suggest that if you want to get more into detail with those civilizations and the culture of those different people, this book is just like not even an overview. It's like a acknowledgement of its existence, kind of. Yeah, something like that. But if you really want to get into that, I would suggest picking up other books, like specifically for those areas, like history books of those areas. Another point that I have for chapter 4 before we move on to chapter 5, cosmology is the study of cosmogony in two roles. The first goal is ordered and unified view of who and what is God, man, and the forces that administrate and sustain the world. And the second goal provides a framework that guides thinking and action for a vast array of seemingly unrelated life situations to the successful identification and attainment of the goal of living. And when we go further into the book, we go into chapter 5, and they introduce the idea of subjective and objective realms. The subjective realm is the realm that identifies with consciousness, oneness. This is where things subsist, whereas in the objective realm, things exist, play around with words. And also in the subjective realm, this is where the creative elements are. In Commission, this is called Nu, and which means energy, and Ra, which means matter. A couple bullet points that I have underneath the subjective realm is: 1, energy matter can take any shape or form. 2, consciousness and will in the subjective realm does not have the same limitations as energy and matter. Its will is unlimited. Our consciousness will is rooted in the consciousness and will of the subjective realm. So in the subjective realm, energy does not have limitation. Is you everywhere. It has no shape or form. This is something that you learn in science class, right?
Yeah, and it cannot be created nor destroyed.
See, this is something that we're learning in science class. Yeah, we're still doing the video still.
Okay.
It's not
What were you doing again?
Doing this.
Okay.
Okay.
So like that's what it is in science, but that's also what it is when you think about this. This is metaphysics is like is a level in science. It's spirit science. Like on YouTube they have spirit science videos, which are really good videos. I like them. They're animated and they're stop baby. They're animated videos and they're in layman's terms and they're really good. It's a spirit science channel on YouTube. But yeah, this metaphysics is like the combination of spiritualness and science all in one. So in point 3, there are no time and space limitations in the subjective realm. It is eternal and infinite and omnipresent. So energy could take any shape or form. Consciousness and will has no limitations. It is unlimited, and there are no time and space limitations in the subjective realm. Those are the 3 points of the subjective realm. If you're gonna sit in here, you gotta sit still. In the objective realm, the world differentiates the original energy matter into things. This is when we start getting to the physical living things start to exist instead of subsist. The subjective realm is being, whereas the objective realm is doing. And from the subjective realm to the objective realm is a step-by-step progression. It's during the progression, each step attempts to keep both the objective and the subjective linked with one another. The dual nature of the subjective realm, which is consciousness, as we said earlier, is the main organizing principle of the objective realm, which is divided into two planes. So the objective realm is divided into two planes: the nominal plane and the phenomenal plane. The nominal plane is the metaphysical objective reality, the spirits of things, thoughts, images, and beings. So this is like we're talking about angels, spirits. Some people refer to them as ancestors, demigods, whatever. So when we go into so are you with me right now? We've got the subjective and the objective. The subjective realm is your consciousness. The objective realm is physical things on a plane. Okay? Your objective realm is divided into two parts: your nominal and your phenomenal. Your nominal is your metaphysical objects. These are the objects that are physical, but they're still more spiritual than they are physical. So we're talking about angels and spirits and such, right? Then you got your phenomenal plane, and this is just strictly physical. Now we're talking about
like things you can touch.
Yeah, now we're talking about humans and animals and vegetation. Okay? So you're starting to see the building blocks to where we're going with this? All right, cool.
So in this whole entire chapter, there will always be a part about there's going to be a part of a spiritual, but it's still connected to a physical sense. But then there's just a straight up physical sense. But then what is the paranormal plane?
You got to think about it as a spectrum. You know how you look at a pH spectrum from one side to the other, and then in the middle is neutral? Well, that's how this is. You got your spiritual on one side and your physical on the other side. So you're going down the spectrum, but you want to be neutral because you want there to be a balance in things. But as the chapters go on, the planes are going to divide, and it gets into details of describing the spheres of the tree of life. There's 9 spheres in the tree of life, and the further down the sphere you go, the less spiritual it becomes and the more physical it becomes. And also at the same time, you have two things going on in a sphere. You have the progression of becoming physical, but then you also have the looking back part and the remembrance of the spiritual. So no matter how far along you go in the physical, you have to keep looking back into the spiritual to keep that oneness going. And as we go further on in chapter 5 and in chapter 6, it explains which each level of energy or matter densification is, and what each sphere of the tree of life was going on in each sphere. Make sense? I broke it down, and then as you go from the nominal plane, which is the metaphysical objects like the angels and stuff, you go and you have the phenomenal plane, which is physical energy and matter. There are also divisions of the nominal plane. There's divisions of where the spirits and the angels are. I'm gonna butcher the shit out of these titles because that's what's just going to happen. So please, like, if somebody's really good at pronunciation and you want to inbox me one time and be like, girl, you messing up, your pronunciation is trash, like, I welcome it. It's cool. Like, that's what we're here for. Like, I actually want feedback from people for real. Like, it would be cool if y'all comment y'all questions or y'all input if y'all reading with us, or if y'all not and y'all just have input because y'all read it already, or y'all have, something that the spirit told y'all, or divine power. Like, come on, like we can make this conversation. Y'all just have to, sit here and listen to us. That's not fun. Anyway, so your first division of the nominal plane is Atziluth, Atzilluth, and this is the first manifestation of the Supreme Being. There is only one being here. This is where God is. This is where people's consciousness ascends to during deep meditation and trance, and this is also where one experiences that all beings, things are one. So this is the first division of the nominal plane, the plane where the angels and deities are. We start off with God, right there. You see that? It's in your head. Yep. You see a pyramid? All right, let's go. The second one is Bria or Bria, Briah. And in this realm, the Ba which is God, divides and dualizes itself into two universal spirits within itself. So you got God up here, and now he's divided himself. And the first one is the organ system through which it wills manifestation. And then the second is the seeds, which are responsible for the actualization of the types of manifestations will to be. So you got God up here, you got your first system or whatever on the side that's like, okay, I'm about to manifest all this stuff. And then you got the other one on the side like, okay, I have the seeds to make that an actuality or a reality. And that's what makes the Holy Trinity. The Ba, which is the world soul, in which all things dwell as one being. You have the Ku, which is the universal divine, which initiates the manifestation of each thing and event in appointed time and space. So you know how like I say like the world is probably like a bunch of like gears in a clock or whatever. Everything happens at every time and space. Yeah. So that's that energy. That's the energy that says, okay, on this day, at this time, at this second, this person is going to do this. Okay. Okay.
So if everything is like a clock, just like how it is right now, a lots of the gears are going in different directions. And this would probably mess up the chain.
Wait a minute, Miles. What are you saying?
I'm saying like in a different perspective. Right now we are all gears. And you say that we all come together. And you agree to it. So if we can come to a conclusion right now, in the world we are in right now in present, we are, most of us, like half of us, are like going in opposite direction, or some of us are not turning. We're learning.
We're in retrograde. Yep. It's like the planets look like it might be going backwards. Maybe some of us are. That's a good point. Maybe. If you think about us like we are planets, yeah, you can say that. You could say that maybe some of us are being defiant, but then you can also argue with that and say, well, if we are all a part of the Holy Trinity and we all come from God and God has his own manifestations that determine what happens at what place at what time, maybe some of us seeming like we are rebelling or going against the grain, maybe it's supposed to happen. You could argue those things. Sir, what is happening? You could argue those things. And both would be pretty valid. At the end of the day, I don't know how far into the argument you could keep going, because that's like the chicken and egg theory. You could say it's chaos, or you could say somebody planned this. Right? Yeah. So you have the Holy Trinity and the Shekem, which is the third one. It's the universal power which carries the physical manifestation of the universal divine will through its units of power. So you have the God, you have the manifestation, and you have the ability to turn that manifestation into a physical form. And now we're going to Division 3, which is the upper Yetzirah. And this is the third level in the gradual densification of energy and matter. So this is the third level. The two building elements of the Bria, which made the Holy Trinity, they then turn into four great spiritual bodies. So first you had the Ba, then you had the Ku and the Shekem, and now the Ku has divided into two parts, and then the Shekem has divided into two parts. So now we're at four. So we're 1, 2, and now we're at 4. Okay? And these four are the great spiritual bodies. You have the mineral, the vegetal, the animal, and the human. Each of these serve as a unifying body for all of its members. When people reach this level, they see themselves as one with all other humans. So you have a level that you reach when you realize that you're one with everything, and then you have a level that's a little further down where you meditate and you realize that you're one with humans.
One with your
Right. And this is that level, because you're divided into kingdoms. This part of the spirit links to the thinking principles of men. Also, the fourth and fifth, sixth spheres of the tree of life with their respective deities. This part is where the spirit provides order in the manifestation and events of the world. Then you get to the fourth division, which is the lower Yetzirah, and this is the fourth level of energy matter / matter densification. Stop it. And this is where the seventh sphere of the tree is. The four building elements where we were, where okay, you had the Ba, you had the Ku and the Shechem, and then you had the four, the mineral, vegetal, animal, and human, and now we're breaking them down into eight. Now we're at eight divisions, and these are family classifications. This is when you start getting into classifying species, and it begins with a G. What's that G word for species?
Genesis.
No, that doesn't even sound right. I forgot what it's called. But this is where you start getting into classifying animals. And then you're going to go down to 16, 32, 64, 256, and so on and so forth. So you keep going down by the eights.
Genus?
Yeah, genus. That's what I was thinking.
What letter does Genesis start with?
Okay. So yeah. So this moves. So this how it works in dividing into life. It goes by eights, but 9 is the number of completion. So you have your levels of the nominal plane going by eights, but it's not complete until it gets to the ninth sphere. When you get to the ninth sphere, then now we're getting to the phenomenal plane. Once you get to the ninth sphere, and it within the nominal plane of the spiritual. Now we're at division 5. Sir, I need you to stop. Go in my room if you're gonna be sitting there humming and stuff. That's not cool.
No.
This involves physical molecules made of energies and substances that are classed as physical in its most subtle form. Why don't you go over the things you did with chapter 5, and I'm gonna get his life together.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in chapter 5, I'm gonna continue. Ninth sphere defines each thing or event as an individual spiritual existence, like Ka. The division of the spirit that has these spheres, the seventh one, the eighth one, and the ninth one we just talked about, with their respective identities, is called the Sahu. That's basically the lower.
Where you at? We here. I read that already. Okay, so on the phenomenal plane, we're now at the 5th step, and this involves physical molecules made of energies and substances that are classed as physical in its most subtle form. It's also known as the astral body. This is the life vehicle of the physical body. It's what makes a person live on Earth. Without this part, a body is a lifeless shell. Under deities, Ra, or the Kundalini force. This is the lower half. One can find atomic and molecular organization of physical matter, but it's also spiritual at the same time. Also, some points underneath this division also, man has 7 bodies. First is the seat of consciousness and identity. This is where the true ego of being lies. The second and third bodies are the creative organs of being, the will and spiritual realization of power. We're still going with the Holy Trinity vibe a little bit. You're still starting off as that oneness, and you're breaking down into the female and the masculine energy. And then we're coming back further from that. If you guys, see the correlation between, like, every time I talk about a sphere or a dimension or a manifestation, or even our bodies, you're always going to start off with that one spirit. Even when you're talking about like human relations with other physical beings on this plane, you're still starting with that one, and we're going down to physical, and then we're going down to feminine and masculine, and then we're going to go further from there depending on what our physical being is. So that is a repeating pattern. If you noticed it, I noticed it. That's what I have. If that's not what you got from it, I would love for you guys to share. I'm not here to debate with nobody. This is what I'm getting from the book. Anyway, so the first is the seat of consciousness. The second and third are the creative organs of being. The fourth is the administrative organs of being. This programs 1 through 3 with the laws that will enable them to achieve their respective goals without violating each other's sphere of interest. So, yeah, I was pretty like self-explanatory. I don't feel like I have to elaborate on that. The fifth one is the specializing organs of being. Here manifests Here is where manifestations acquire the spiritual qualities that will distinguish them into families and separate existences. At the sixth body, you have the motive power of being. Each manifested thing receives its breath of life, living or electromagnetic motive force, non-living, to enable it to act on the physical plane. On your sixth level, in our seventh body, each manifestation is segregated into individual existences, which is achieved by receiving a physical body, which separates each thing into time and space. So those are the seven bodies we have. That is what we're divided into. I think about that a lot because I even think like down to like our organelles. For some reason, like my mind can't go past the organelles of our cells because like what comes before that is what I think about a lot. And that's probably something that's probably like common sense amongst people that like love science. That's not common sense to me. So I would like to read more into like what is the building block of an organelle? Like, can we get further into that? Do you know about that? I know you like science.
I actually haven't been that deep in it.
Yeah, you don't go past organelles, right? You think of you find out like, you have your nucleus, your mitochondria, and all those different makings of a cell, but they never break down what an organelle is. Have you ever gotten that? No, I never gotten that either. So, yeah, I would like to go to that because that's as small as I can think of. Because then I start playing around back and forth with the organelle cell. Well, what is an organelle? Organelle is probably made out of cells, and those cells are made out of organelles. And you just keep going back and forth playing with organelles and cells. I don't really think that further than that. If that makes sense to anybody. But basically, that's what that's saying. Like everybody starts off as the one being, and then as you differentiate and unite at the same levels, you are learning to separate yourselves as the being that you are with every little thing about you. The step-by-step manifestation of the subjective being, there was 10 manifestations. And these manifestations break down why we use the ankh sound, the NJ, or in parentheses K. The K is also used as interchangeable, and that is the sound of life and all of living. And then you have the prefixes, and now the prefixes are always changing, and the prefixes is what determines the manifestation. So your first manifestation is the word ankh. That's AU plus NJ, or NG, plus NG. And this is when consciousness looks back into the subjective realm and becomes aware of its original and true essential qualities. And this is represented by the ankh cross, and that is the sound that you're making. Your second manifestation is HU plus NG. And this is consciousness. This is when consciousness becomes aware that its energy or matter is essentially unconditioned and can assume any conceivable form. When you get to your third manifestation, this is KRI plus NG. And this is when consciousness realizes anything that it's willed to become. It realizes its power of creativity. This is when we start getting into now we're creating things when we get to this level. The first three manifestations brings awareness of true nature. It forms the first three spheres of the cosmogonical diagram known as the tree of life. So this is where the first three spheres of the tree of life are also within. And the infinite will and unlimited creative power give rise to the next three manifestations. These bring forth the knowledge of self and creative vehicles of Neter. So the first three, we're accepting the fact that we're one. And we're looking back at the subjective will, subjective being, and we're acknowledging all of those.
So the rest would be like the left brain.
Yeah, yep. So right now we're in the right brain for the first three. We're on the right brain when we're looking at oneness. Now we're going to go into the fourth manifestation, which is SHRI plus NG. And this is where Neter turns its attention to the things that are being made. You look into the subjective realm, one realizes that all things are manifestations of one being. This is the ruling principle of their existence. So we're looking back at the first three, and we're realizing that everything comes from that energy, but now we're looking at the things that are being made, and we're relating that oneness with the separate beings. When we get into the fifth manifestation, this is HLRI plus NG. And this is where Neter looks outward into the world to come and focuses on the requirements for experience. In order to live, the one being must be broken into myriads of beings. Neter becomes aware of the existence depends. Oh, Neter becomes aware that the existence depends on there being differences and oppositions. So in order for me to exist, I have to be different from you. Otherwise, I wouldn't exist. You get what I'm saying?
Everyone is special.
Everyone, everything. In order for your hair to exist, it would have to have separate DNA from your skin. Otherwise, you would be bald and your hair wouldn't exist, right? Every little thing has to have its place. Every little thing has to have its differences for it to exist outside of the one being. Otherwise, everything would still be the same one being. Does that make sense to you? Yes?
Yeah.
No? If it doesn't, please, because I want you to understand.
But if it has to be broken up, so if it was all the same, what would happen?
It would just all still be one. It wouldn't be different things. Like, stop picking at your face. So, like, all right, let's think about air. Let's pretend that air is the one being. Air is our persona, our representation of God. We all come from air, right?
Yeah.
Now, what if we all had the same exact DNA or cellular structure and all that as air? We would just be air, right? But we don't. You're you and I'm me, right? My DNA is not the DNA of air. Whereas we still have the same elements. I still come from air. I'm still, something of air. But in order for me to exist as me, I have to have something a little bit different. You understand? Okay. If you don't understand, we could talk about that a little bit more after this video. Because I want you to understand that. Because that's important. To understand that we have to be different in order for us to exist. Otherwise, everything would look the same and be the same and sound the same. We would still be one whole being. And then, okay, so reviewing manifestations 4 through 6, they brought forth laws that govern earthly manifestations of Neter. The 3 more spheres have been added to the tree of life. So now we have 6 spheres of the tree of life. And this leads to the next 3 manifestations.
So would they be part of the not part of the
this is okay. So on the first 3, you're looking at the right brain. On the next 3, you're looking outward into the objective realm, but now you're applying the laws of the subjective realm to the objective realm. Now you're saying, okay, we're all one and everything has its time and place, and we have these spiritual beings and things that are in charge of such and such, and now it's creating these physical things. So now when we get into our next 3, we're going to look at the relationship amongst those things. Now when we get to the 7th manifestation, this is the KLI plus the NG, and this goes beyond external differences of things. There must be an emphasis on their interdependence, a recognition of their oneness in the midst of their differences. It gives rise to the metaphor and harmony in the mixed families. So during the 7th manifestation, you have to understand there's an interdependence between everything. Do you understand what interdependence means? Interdependence means, there was a book I read, it was a self-help book, and it was about relationships, building relationships with other people. So I'm going to give that definition. In order to be interdependent, you have to have independent individuals. I have to be independent. That means that I'm a full form. I can do everything by myself. I'm capable. I have things I can offer. You are independent. You are a full form. You're capable. You got things going on, right? Interdependent means you look at me and you see, hey, I see this full form over there. She got some shit that I don't got. And I see you and I say, oh, look, there goes a full form over there, but he got some shit I don't got. So then we come together and you give me the things that I need that I don't have, and I do that same thing for you. But we're still 2 wholes. Kind of like when you do chemistry and you do the chemical problems like oxygen, H plus O equals, H2O, two H's plus O. Does that make sense? When you combine the molecules and then they share their electrons on the ends of them and now they're together. You're not saying anything, and it's making me super nervous. Like, are you getting this? What's happening?
Yes, because in my head, when I'm thinking about it, I actually haven't been thinking about the scientific. For most of this time, I've actually been thinking about it like as a family. Mm-hmm. Like when you talked about this part, I actually thought about how the differences between like me and my own sister.
Okay.
And how we can come together because we both have like differences, but they can help each other in different ways, just like how a husband and wife would do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you get it. That's exactly what I'm trying to explain. Okay. Okay. The eighth manifestation is AI plus NG, and this is like the fifth manifestation. It focuses on the differences between things. The previous families are further divided, and this is where species are introduced. The ninth manifestation, now we're VA plus NG, and this is the mother of all living things. It gathers physical elements and forces and coordinates the forces of the other eight manifestations and gives rise to physical things. After that, you get to the 10th manifestation. This isn't necessarily considered a manifestation because it's actually an effect. The previous 9 manifestations that we went over, that is the cause, that is the vehicle that causes the 10th manifestation to occur.
But I guess then the 10th manifestation would have to be there because for every cause there would be an effect.
Right, that's exactly what the 10th manifestation is. It's an effect. So in the book, the author wasn't really trying to group the first 9 manifestations with the 10th manifestation because
it's like a different thing.
They call it effect while the rest are the cause. That's how it's explained in the book. But yes, if it makes it easier for you to group them, you can group them. It's interchangeable. As long as you understand the steps and what's happening, that's really the whole point of it. At this point, this is an effect of the previous 9 rather than the actual manifestation. So that's the whole chapter. The 5th chapter is getting through like the different stages of life, from spiritual to the physical realm. Now moving forward to chapter 6, this is the analysis of the cosmogonical system. The first act that you have okay, I'll just start from here because I'm running out of time. On page 73, it gives you an overall of the entire chapter. And what each sphere is and what it does. That was a great page because it really summed up the whole chapter. There's 4 fundamental type of temperaments. This is where the fourth sphere of creativity is. You have your non-ferocious area. They use it as like a cross chart. And at the top you have water, at the bottom you have fire, on one side you have air, and on one side you have earth. And then in the coordinates you have moist, cold, hot, and dry. And this is where they place like the temperaments of the 4 species, the animals and vegetation, mineral, and other one.
And they're all in the diamond-shaped formation.
Yeah, they're all within ferocious and non-ferocious, and that's how they're classified according to the elements. And on page 76, they have an overview of all the spheres, 0, and then it goes to, like, they have a sphere on one side, and then on the other side of the table is the cosmogonical correspondence. Sphere 0 is, again, referring to God, the supreme being. 1 is I, God, that's the likeness of God. 2 is will, so now we're going back to that Holy Trinity. You have Ba, and then you have the 2 underneath. You have the the manifester, and then you have the will, the manifesting with the seeds and stuff. And then you go to sphere 3, which is make, and that's when we get into the creativity part. 4 is according to the divine blueprint. Now we're starting to make the laws of creation. Now we're starting to see the formulas that need to be created for the first 3 spheres to start making forward. So you got the first 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're creating shit. 5, enforcement. Now we're enforcing the things that we want to manifest. Then we're getting to 6. This is assisted by the centrally located coordinator. I want to say when I think of the 6th coordinator, I kind of think of like the nucleus, the neutral part kind of. This is like the grand central area where information is coming through and then it's coming out physical. Because this is where we start to make a transition. Now we're coming from it being a thought and energy and all that stuff, and now we're going through number 6. And once it comes out of number 6, it's coming out. Now it's being designed and imaged as 7, and now at 8 is being assisted by a technician to perfect it. By 9, it's going through the divine womb, and once we're at sphere 10, we now have a physical form. It breaks it down further because while we're at sphere 0, it's a couple different things going. It breaks it down different ways on page 76. But 0, you're still talking about God. At sphere 1, it's manifests itself. Sphere 2 and 3, now you're manifesting creative faculties. Sphere 4, 5, and 6, now you're making your celestial government to administrate. At sphere 4, 5, and 6, this is where the angels are. At sphere 7, 8, and 9, this is where the celestial workers are shaping things and forming things, and this is where like the physical and the spiritual are playing around at 7, 8, and 9, and then at 10 you're straight at physical. So it keeps going on, describe like the different ways you can keep saying what the different spheres of tree of life are. But I think you guys kind of get it. There's a dualization of absolute being. Again, another summary of what we just did, the subjective realm being 0, and then you have your objective realm, which is your spheres 1 through 0. And in all areas and in all levels of being, there is a dualization. So no matter what kind of being you are, you do have a subjective realm and an objective realm within you. If it depends on which part you're willing to acknowledge the most, that is up to you. Another thing, like that's like a really big argument in my mind. Like, is things really predetermined, or is stuff really just like crazy out here? Don't know yet.
I think we're all just going by our own logic on how we feel.
Yeah.
Because we can't imagine how other things would be for somebody else since we're not in their situation.
Right.
Like how you just said. We wouldn't understand some religions unless we actually participated in them, or we actually have been in them for a long while in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. This is true. But okay, so going back to the dualization of absolute being, you have your subjective realm, which is 0, and there's a dualization of your subjective being, which is your consciousness on one side and matter on the other side. And then you have the other side of your absolute being is your objective realm, which is spheres 1 through 10. And the dualization of your objective being is your nominal, which is your metaphysical plane, and that's where your deities and your spirits and everything lie. And then you get onto the phenomenal plane, which is your physical plane. That's when we're starting to classify geniuses and species and families, etc., etc. And the book just goes on. What I like about the different chapters is towards the end of the chapter, it'll keep summarizing, like, the chapter you just read in correspondence to the chapters you read before. And it's really easy for me to remember what I'm reading if I write it, because as I'm writing it, I'm like taking pictures in my mind of my handwriting, so I can see in my notebook, like, okay, I remember on that page, I see the handwriting in my head. It's weird. That's how I move. That's how I got good grades in school. I don't know why it works that way. That's how it works. And what I liked about these chapters too is I just started getting into numerology. I just started playing with tarot cards. You can feel however way you want to feel about it. It's an interest to me.
What's numerology?
Numerology is the study of numbers. We started playing around with different numbers. And what I like about this was as I was reading about the different spheres and what the different levels of manifestation were and the different dimensions and stuff was, it was like it was correlating with the different books that you read about numerology and what each number represents. And we could talk about that later, because when I do my jewelry, when I do my beading on my jewelry, and when I do the organites on my jewelry and stuff, I really pay attention to how many crystals I put in my jewelry. I pay attention to how many beads and the order of the beads that I put my stuff in. Like, I really pay attention to my stuff for the people that are wearing it. So, like, when I was looking at this, it kind of confirmed what I always thought about numbers, and it confirmed the stuff that I was reading about tarot cards and numerology and zodiacs and the numbers associated with the zodiacs and all that. It's nice to see how everything really is one. And when you look at all the different religions and sciences and studies and stuff like that, it really is one. And I'm really enjoying reading this book. It's the beginning, but I'm enjoying it. And I like what it's doing for me, and what is and how is binding all the other things that I know right now as I get deeper into my studies with plants, and I'm getting deeper into my studies with crystals, and I'm getting deep into my studies about different cultures as I write my kids' books and stuff like that. Like, it's really dope. It's really dope.
So it's like informational text, just to learn something.
Right. I really believe, like, when Darwin was going from island to island and he was looking at the birds, and he was seeing how each bird was different in correspondence to, like, the kind of food it was trying to eat, and the way the temperature was, and the trees and all that stuff,
and the environment.
That's how I see humans. We really just like our environment. We are where we are, and that's why when they say, oh, when you eat honey or when you eat vegetables or you eat, make sure it's local, and do things locally. And when you go out traveling and you smell a new air, you're around a new stuff, like, it's new to you, so it's like crazy on your body real quick, like, like, all that stuff is because, like, we're all one. And, like, and I think of people just like, and I think of continents, I think of all of that. Like, I think of chakras, like, if we're supposed to align 9, if 9 planets get aligned, stuff gets crazy. Your systems have to be aligned. The systems of your cells have to be aligned. Why do people think that they don't have to be aligned with one another? That's where my question always comes at. Like, when does that stop? Like, when does the idea of oneness stop? Why does it stop once you get to humans and human nature and stuff like that? That's crazy to me. But anyway, I gotta wrap it up because Facebook is saying that it's time to wrap it up. It's playing the wrap it up music for us and shit. But next Sunday at 5, we should be on time next Sunday. We will definitely, like, celebrate Mother's Day together because all my boys love me. But we're gonna be reading chapters 7, 8, 9. Thank you for talking more this Sunday than you talked last Sunday. Hopefully we get to hear that beautiful voice more Sundays. Yep, that's all. Thank you. Have a good one.